Guys, good morning. So it's so far it's the final session of 2025, right? So we'll be finishing this paper production, the last, like the final part of the industrial chemistry, and we'll be discussing a few of the practical practicals, right? Okay, so starting from the very beginning of paper manufacturing. Paper can be considered as film layer made of from cellulose fibers obtained from plants, right? So it's basically made from plants, right? The papers are basically made from plant materials like the woody parts. Then you like remove the lignin out of it, and you make a sheet, and so on. Like we'll be making it going through 4 steps. So the first 4 steps are given steps in paper manufacturing industry are these 4 steps. So you'll have to remember the 4 steps, right? First one is pulp formation. So you have to make the pulp, right? And there are 2 methods of making the pulp, mechanical and chemical. We'll be discussing it. And the second thing is sheet making a sheet, and then it wetting and drying and coating are the 4 steps, right? So there are 4 steps that you have to go through when it comes to the paper manufacturing, right? Okay, look at the next part. Wood chips, straw and wood from trees such as eucalyptus, pine are used to make the pulp, right? So basically what we are using, wood chips, straw and woody parts from trees like eucalyptus and pine, right? Those are fast growing plants. Those are the raw materials that we used. The purpose of pulping is to remove the lignin, right? In the pulping, the first one, pulp formation, the main purpose is removing the lignin. And for removing the lignin, we will be using 2 either mechanical or chemical method, right? Then lignin can be considered as a natural glue that binds cellulose fiber together, right? So in the pulp forming, what we do is removing lignin, and lignin is one of the kind of a binder that is gluing those cellulose fibers in a wood, right? So it's a natural glue that binds cellulose fibers together, right? So if you ask what lignin is a glue that binds cellulose fibers together, right? You don't have to remember the structures, right? So you know, in a plant, lignin is surrounding the cellulose fibers and making it like a glue and stick together and like a very hard surface, right, with the lignin, right? Come to the making the pulp, the first step, making the pulp. A mechanical or chemical method is used, highlight. So two methods are there. Either it is mechanical or either it is chemical, right? So 2 of the methods are used. A mechanical or a chemical method is used, right? And out of that, remember, the mechanical method can extract about 90% of the pulp, which means like mechanical method can remove 90% of lignin compared to the chemical method. When it comes to the chemical method, only about 50% of lignin can be removed, right? Not all the lignin are removed in the chemical method. Only 50% is removed, but compared to it, in the mechanical method, 90% of lignin is removed, right? So the mechanical method removes 90% of the lignin, while the chemical method only removes about 50%, right? Chemical method only removes about 50%, right? The primary goal is to chemically separate the lignin material from the cellulose fibers in plant parts, right? That is to make the pulp. So this hardness is there because of the lignin, and when you like apply either this mechanical or chemical method, this lignin will be removed, so it will make a pulp, right? Simple as that, right? When the resin right, you hear me, right? Yeah, you hear me. So when the resin content of wood part is high, the sulfate action, alkaline action or Kraft action takes place, right? So that is the methods. Those are the methods, the chemical methods and mechanical methods that we use to remove the lignin, right? Resin content or the lignin content is high. You either use sulfate action, we will be discussing those, sulfate method like sulfate action, or alkaline action or Kraft action. We will be using those actions to remove the lignin, and we will be discussing those parts, right? So this is sulfite method, as we discussed, the first method, sulfite method. The sulfite method is carried out in two ways. The medium in which the reaction takes place is acidic or neutral. In the sulfite method, there are two ways of doing it. One is an acidic way, the other one is a neutral way, right? In the sulfite method, there are two ways that we carried out the reaction. One is acidic, the other one is neutral. The basic process for making pulp is to hydrolyze lignin using sulfur dioxide with the bisulfite ions such as magnesium bisulfite, right? So in this method, sulfite method, what we do is hydrolyze lignin, right? Hydrolyze lignin using sulfur dioxide with bisulfite ion. Bisulfite ion is this, right? Magnesium bisulfite here, right? So in this sulfite method, what we do is hydrolyze the lignin with using sulfur dioxide and bisulfite ions, right? And then do the acid hydrolysis to remove the lignin, right? So the chemical steps are given, but you don't have to remember the chemical steps, right? Right. Wood chips are added to an aqueous solution containing chemical compounds, and the temperature is maintained at 130 to 140 degrees for 6 to 8 hours. You have to remember this, right? So wood chips are added to an aqueous solution containing chemical compounds, and then the temperature is maintained at 130 to 140 for 6 to 8 hours. This is still the sulfite method, right? Finally, the pulp is bleached. Using various compounds, and we will be discussing what are the compounds that we use, right? Bleaching uses one of the following compounds: chlorine gas, chlorine dioxide and sodium hypochlorite. So basically sodium dioxide is the best bleach because it doesn't harm the environment. All the others could harm the environment, right? But so far these three bleaching compounds can be used in the bleaching step, right? So what are the things that we use to bleach? Chlorine gas, chlorine dioxide and sodium hypochlorite, right? And hydrogen peroxide and oxygen gas as well, right? So these are the bleach, and out of those chlorine dioxide is the best use, right? Chlorine dioxide, ClO2 is the best use, right? Using ClO2 instead of chlorine gas for bleaching helps minimize environmental problems, highlighted, right? So using Cl2 instead of other chlorine gases minimizes environmental problems. So the best use is actually using ClO2, right? Using ClO2. Right. So that is sulfite action. Now come to the sulfate or alkaline action, right? Alkaline action, or you call it craft action as well. What is resin content? Resin is something resin is something like a glue. Resins are something like a glue, a sticky part that is made in the stem of a wood, and it's more like the lignin. So those have to be removed in order to make the pulp, because those resin will add some colors to the pulp, and you have to bleach them. Those colors you have to remove. That is why you're bleaching them. You know, resins you have to bleach and remove the color. Right. Sulfate action. In the alkaline method, wood chips are treated with an aqueous solution of sodium hydroxide and sodium sulfide at a temperature of 170 degrees for 3 to 4 hours, right? So the wood chips are treated with an aqueous solution of NaOH and Na2S, nitrogen sulfide, so sodium sulfide, at a temperature of 170 degrees of Celsius for 3 to 4 hours, right? 170 degrees of Celsius for 3 to 4 hours, that is treating. For 1 ton of dry wood chips, approximately 150 kilograms, 150 kilograms of wood chips, 50 kilogram of NaOH and Na2S are usually used, right? For 150 kilogram of wood chips, 50 kilogram of sodium hydroxide and Na2S are usually used, right? So that is the mechanical way of doing it. Now come to the chemical reactions in the craft process. So this is the chemical reaction, but you don't have to remember this, right? So we actually discussed the chemical method, right? We actually discussed the chemical method, and the last one is the mechanical method, right? So we discussed the chemical method so far up to now, and this is also chemical reaction in the craft process, right? So this solution must be filtered to remove the solids. If there are like any of the solid particles like the cellulose fibers, you have to filter and remove them. The filter turns brown due to the dissolution of compounds between the lignin and the fiber in the solution. The pulp is then thoroughly washed with water to remove chemicals and remaining lignin, right? So you dissolve all the compounds and it will add bit of a color, and it will be like brown in color when you dissolve everything like this, right? And you have to remove those colors as well, and the pulp is then thoroughly washed with water to remove those chemicals and remove remaining lignin. The pulp is bleached to remove lignin, and NaOH is added for this purpose. So to remove the lignin, you add NaOH at the end, and remaining lignin is then oxidized by O2, right? And the remaining lignin, if there is any other remaining lignins, they are oxidized by oxygen and removed, right? Then the pulp is further bleached with Cl, and usually it's ClO2 that is used, right? ClO2 that is used, right? Now come to the mechanical method. Pulp obtained by mechanical method contains lignin substances bound to the cellulose fibers, right? To some extent. This pulp bleaching is different from chemical pulp bleaching in that it bleaches the color of waste without destroying the lignin substances bound to the fibers, right? In here the bleaching is little bit different because it doesn't harm the lignin substances in the fibers, right? Mechanical pulp bleaching uses highlight sodium sulfite, calcium O, sodium hypochlorite, then sodium peroxide and sulfur dioxide, right? Any of these can be used. In paper making, fillers such as calcium carbonate and those are very important. These are the fillers. Fillers are calcium carbonate, talc, titanium dioxide are the fillers. So they are like these fillers are asked in the questions in the MCQs, right? Calcium carbonate, talc, and titanium dioxide, right? And they are used to reduce the transparency and achieve uniform density, right? That is why the fillers are used anyways, right? Polymeric solvents or starch are used as binding agents. Now, as a binder, either polymeric solvents or especially starch are used, right, as a binder to bind the pulp to strengthen the bond between the cellulose fibers and between fillers and colorants, right. The pulp produced by one of the above method is thinned on a screen after bleaching and allowed to drain, like to remove the water, allowed to drain, and is further subjected to mechanical pressure to remove the excess water and dried to produce paper, right. So this is how it happens. The wood chips are going through the mechanical actions, and then the pulp is made, and you add fillers, colorants and binders to it, and then you thin it on a layer and you are drying it and coating. So at the end the papers are made, right. So that's the whole process of making papers, right. Okay, so that is about paper making and these highlighted parts, right. Try to remember these highlighted part because those are basically MCQ questions that I have asked mostly, right. MCQ questions that I have asked mostly, and there could be a like essay part sometimes, right. At the chemistry part there could be essay part, or else most probable there will be few of the either just maybe one MCQ, right. So like have a bit of a memory about it. We'll go to the next part, the practical session, right. We'll go to the practical session, right. Just give me a second. මේ කට් කළා එකක් ඉවරයි. OBS